I can hear you talking through the wall, but you're not coming through the speaker.
Can hear me through the wall, but not through the window, eh? Okay, I'm here. My mute button was on, excuse me.
All right.
Anyway, I started to say that you reading that reminded me of a film that I watched, some time back, and in it there was a crash scene, cars crashing and smashing. And I was as engaged as what you're talking about, and it just at the last flicker of a second was like something wasn't right about this car crash. So I rolled back and I watched it, and while I wasn't engaged and the sound, I wasn't riding with the soundtrack, it was very clear that these were toy cars just being thrown around. It's just so clear. But being engaged in the sound of it, it was amazing for me, because I went back and played it a couple times. It was amazing how when I let the soundtrack play, and the soundtrack added a realism that almost disappeared from my visual reproduction of it. The fact that these were obviously toy cars that were just being, rolled around, and it's interesting how one sense can change what the other senses do. And in particular, what we can do with our minds when we choose to be fully engaged in what the mind is producing for us. The personal code evaluation you've heard us talk about before, it's a device that we use, or an evaluation that we use to give people feedback on where the holes are in their minds, where there's blockage and where things need to be learned. And the most common place for a low score to show up where there's a problem is in the scoring scale for truth. And that most people, that's a big challenge for most people, is blockage of truth, and recognizing how that works, which kind of ties into what we're speaking of here. And that is that when we're engaged with our minds and we choose to believe that what the mind is producing is truth, and you can always tell that your mind's lying to you when there's hostility or fear moving. It's never the truth if there's hostility and fear engaged. They're markers for the fact that the mind is lying. But what happens is the mind's in a lie, and we swear that must be the truth. Some people have labeled it things like alternative facts. What happens is that 9-bit space, we've talked about the Harvard research that showed, this goes way back into the 50s, that showed that in a time frame where 10,000 brain cells are firing, there are 10,000 measurable units of electrical activity happening, the max amount of data that goes into conscious awareness is 9 bits. Tiny, tiny, tiny framework of what is moving in the mind. So, they've got people hooked up to electrodes measuring 10,000 brain cells firing, and yet in that time frame, all that's available is 9 bits of data. When that 9-bit space is filled, and it's filled with a lie, but we call our lie truth, then there's no room in the mind for truth. And so we live in blockage of truth. For those who years ago did laws of living with us, you'll remember that we actually used to teach that. If you look back in your old laws of living manual, we called it blockage of personal error. And then, this goes back 25 years ago now, I was teaching the laws of living class and processing with someone, and they're harping on and putting their lie forward and insisting that their lie was the truth. And it just, it was like a total turnaround for him. It's like, click. Oh, it's not blockage of truth. This person, or pardon me, it's not blockage of personal error, which we used to teach errantly. This person is seeing their error perfectly. The problem isn't seeing their error. The problem is they're calling the error truth. And once you call your error truth, then you're in blockage of truth. There's no room in the mind for truth to show up. And that's the problem with denial. This whole degradation of the mind starts with denial, and of course that's when either I think or speak as though something outside of me is the cause of what's moving inside of me. Now, to think that could possibly happen is just so crazy. Something's moving inside of me. Why is it moving inside of me? Because it's there. Can something else trigger what's inside of me into action? Yes. But can they cause it to be in me? No. So when I say to somebody, and this is, right back to the language of how you join the one world universal religion of blame. You made me mad, you made me sad, you hurt me, they disturbed me, they upset me. That's the problem out there. Well, when I use that kind of language, what I'm in essence saying to my mind is, mind, don't show me the truth. I want to believe this lie. Fill my 9-bit space with a lie. And that means that I have to hide the truth from myself. And most people live in blockage of truth most of their lives. That's why the majority of conversation, listen to the political speaker, even listen to the theologian at the front of the church, the rabbi, the priest, the minister, listen to them. And yes, and then when that happened, how did that make you feel? Listen to the psychologist or the psychiatrist. Go check out. I've done this. Go sit in one of the big bookstores and just go through and read theologian after theologian, psychologist after psychologist, psychiatrist after psychiatrist, and they all eventually come up with a thought, or pretty much all of them come up with a thought that goes, and how did that make you feel? As though something outside of you could possibly be the cause of what's moving inside of you, or that could possibly make you feel anything. Now, again, can something out there resonate what's in here? Yes, but the cause of my feeling is what's moving inside of me. And when I recognize that, then I recognize that each time I'm in that state of blockage of truth, and in blockage of truth, in essence, what I'm saying to myself, I'm saying to my unconscious, where those 10,000 brain cells are firing, okay, mind, I know that it's something in me that's the cause of this, but don't you dare make me look at it. Don't you show it to me. You build me a picture. Let's see. Who am I going to take today? Is it going to be Bill, Harry, Mary, or Hortense? Oh, it's Hortense. Okay. So build me a picture that Hortense is the reason I'm feeling this. And out of the mind energy, out of the thought disorders that are moving in me, my mind has to obey those instructions. And so what I do, when you understand how the mind works, you realize that the mind is an evidential device. I mean, when you're only looking at 9 bits of data, measurable units of electrical activity out of 10,000 firing, obviously you're only looking at evidence. And the only evidence that most people ever get to see is evidence of their own BS. That's belief system, by the way. Notice if you have a different reality for those initials, BS brings up something different for you than belief system. You probably know what those other initials are because that's what most people think of those initials. But it's the mind that's causing. It's the mind that's at the root of everything that we see as a construct within it. And one of the objectives of this work is to choose to honor truth. And if you're honoring truth, you couldn't possibly even think of engaging in a conversation about alternative facts. Choose to honor truth and to learn to take responsibility for everything that's moving within you, whatever it is. And the beauty of doing that is that your why is this happening to me again experience will tend to start to disappear when you do that. Because the only reason, many people misinterpret the why is this happening to me again experience. When they hear the title of my book, and I'm talking to them, they'll say things like, yes, they're doing it to me again. And my response is, no, that's not the why is this happening to me again experience. Your mind is doing it to you again, and you've projected it into your brain's image of them. But it isn't that somebody 30 years ago did it, and then 20 years ago, and 25 years ago, and 27, and 19, and 18, and 16, and 14, and just yesterday. It's that your mind is generating the same realities, and while you're going, they are the cause of it, you instruct your mind to keep the truth hidden from you. Choosing to honor truth creates resolution in that arena. Once you choose to honor truth, then your mind is able to say to you, oh, well, we got this little thing down here that we've been blaming dozens of people for all our lives, but guess what? Here's the truth about it. This is yours, and it's about you. Now, the power in that is when I realize that it's mine and it's about me, I'm now empowered to change it. But as long as I think it's being caused by somebody else, I can't change a darn thing. So it's moving out of that state of block to truth and choosing to honor truth that makes the difference. And that's a key part of this whole puzzle of self-healing and self-awareness. Again, remember, when you're looking at 9 bits of data out of 10,000 brain cells firing, the mind has selected the data that you're able to see. It's a great line in the Course in Miracles. The Course in Miracles says, perception is a choice. And not only that, it says that perception is a skill made up by you to take the place of what the Creator gave you in creation. In other words, take the place of truth. So could you imagine giving up perception? Could you imagine saying to yourself, okay, I'm willing to live without perception any longer, recognizing that it's a skill made up by me to displace the actuality of life? Everything's going to change when you choose to engage in that one, as it should. Because in mass, when we as human beings recognize our humanness is the active presence of love, we then have the opportunity to choose to live in truth continuously and undo what is most likely for most people 1,000 generations of lies. 1,000 generations of hostility or fear pointed at everybody else, and sometimes even pointed at self. It's interesting, in the Aramaic language, the word neighbor means anybody that you think about. If you're thinking about yourself, you are your own neighbor. So yes, somebody can certainly stand in the mirror and rant and rage at themselves just like they would someone else when they're in blockage of truth. Choosing to honor truth, choosing to bring the mind back into alignment. Why is the mind in blockage of truth? Because I've given it a goal to fulfill. And the major goal that most people live under, one that runs whole family systems, almost runs whole cultures, is find me somebody to blame. And if you're in disturbance and if you're in upset and you live in that goal, find me someone to blame, then your mind will find someone to blame. And you'll notice if you look into the lives of those who, they've given up on society, they go off and they become hermits. You notice that they do to themselves what they do to everybody else. They become pretty wacky. and blame it on themselves. So you'll note that the forgiveness worksheet is a no-fault process. We're not looking to establish fault. We're not looking to establish who's to blame. What we're looking to do is to remove, especially the generational realities, but any reality that's based in hostility or fear from the mind. And when we remove it from the mind, because the mind is the body, we remove it from the body. If the dis-ease energy of a negative thought complex, a set of thought disorders, is removed from physiology where it's causing a particular chemical aberration or disease, chemistry of that tissue changes and the disease disappears. And then people say, well, wait a minute, Michael, now that's a physical thing, isn't it? Well, if we listen to Einstein, it's not. Einstein says, on such things as matter, we've been all wrong. What we have heretofore called matter is energy, energy whose vibrations have been so lowered as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. We don't live in a material world. We live in an energetic world. And mind energy, if we go to the opening words in the book of John, it says, in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. Not in the beginning was the word. In the beginning was the mind energy. Whose mind energy becomes your flesh? Mine? No. My mind energy becomes my flesh. Your mind energy becomes your flesh. If there's an aberration in your flesh, then you need to start looking at what's going on in your mind and removing the underlying cause. Now, you'll notice that's not very well, it's hardly even conceived of in what we call the healing professions. And you'll notice that the healing professions, so-called healing professions, we should really rename them because they're not healing professions. Most of them are treatment professions. Oh, the mind energy you're holding in your big toe is causing the big toe disease. Well, I've got a drug for you. The mind energy that's causing the kneecap disease in you, I have a drug. Oh, the mind energy that's causing the disorder in your lung, your liver, your heart, your brain, oh, I have 4 different drugs, one for each of those. We can change that. We can treat that and make the appearance of it, the symptoms of it, go away. There, how do you like that? Is that great healing or what? Well, my offering is no, that's not healing at all. That's just symptom suppression. It's called treatment. Now, I'm not knocking treatment. Treatment can be really helpful. I mean, it can take people out of a lot of discomfort. But treatment can't heal. You need to put treatment where it's needed, and many times it's contraindicated. You want to put treatment in a category where at the same time as treatment is offered, you're also offering healing. Most of the world wouldn't even know there's a difference between the two. They would use those 2 words interchangeably. Not if you've got the brain cells for how this energy system works. So recognizing that relative to this integrated energy system that we call a body-mind unit, there are basically 2 qualities of energy. There's that which lifts it up, and there's that which tears it down. Tear down energy, the ancient Aramaic, described tear down energy was the word sin. It's an archery term. Fire at the bullseye and you miss the bullseye, Scorpio sin, you're off the mark. If you put an energy into the tissue structure that is off the mark, it will create a disease process. Until you remove that energy that's off the mark from the tissue, the disease process will continue. I don't care how many treats you give it. You notice that somebody had the ABC set of symptoms and they were given the ABC drug, and now they need the XYZ drug and the MNO drug and the PQR drug. And 10 years from now, they'll tell them that they need the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. I remember one intensive we were at and we were talking about this principle. There was a gentleman at the intensive who got up. We were in a building that the bedrooms were in the house that we were teaching in, the center we were teaching in. He went back to his room, and he picked up from his room a Walmart-style bag, brought it in, and dumped it out on the table. And if I remember correctly, about 30 bottles dropped out on the table out of that Walmart bag. And that's what he was taking every day. A year later, he was down to one of those sets of pills. Mind energy becomes flesh. You've got to become aware and responsible for the quality of your own mind energy and the perceptual constructs of your mind that result from it. When you do that, everything changes. We're here to support change on that gut level. This work is all about. And so, Miss Jeannie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
We do have a hand up, and I believe that
Awesome.
It is David. We haven't heard from him in a long time. Area code 206. You're on the air.
Welcome, good sir.
Hey, Michael, how are you?
I am well. I'm rocking.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been, I'm doing that codependence to interdependence, and I am making a lot of headway. Yeah,
Tell us about it. What's happening?
Yes, a lot of stuff is opening up. A lot of the intensity behind and charging these beliefs or thoughts or these thought clusters have really diminished, and I'm able to really get in there and change them and not, do this blame situation that just does not produce any results at all anymore. And it's really nice to kind of see I have the ability to make more choices in my life and not just react. And it's doing the worksheets, it's doing the mind shifters, it's doing everything. And in the beginning, I was like, just kind of the battering ram, just getting the energy going and the momentum. And then now it's just doing it like more patiently and more thoughtful and sitting with it. But I've been really coming on, because I was raised Catholic. My mom's side is very, very Catholic. And I know I picked up these behaviors of like penance, self-mastery through punishment, and not allowing like good things to happen in my life, but always expecting some type of other shoe to drop or some situation to disrupt things because I'm not worthy or worth it. Always getting to a point where things are going to break through, then, something happens. But even though when those things do happen, I'm just like, like a couple of days ago, I bought a brand new car a couple months ago, and a couple of days ago, I'm driving on the highway and late at night coming home from work, and there's all these semis on the highway, and something broke off the semi and just smashed the top of my roof. I mean, super loud. And it was just like, I had this thought like, like, am I going to have to file a report on my insurance? Should I take a picture of the semi truck's license plate? And I was like, nah. So I just kind of just pulled over, looked at it. There was like nothing big, and just kind of moved on. And it wasn't like some type of drama or something that triggered, all these different associations and all these different things. It just, I would have to say, a lot of freedom and a lot more vitality and like living in the moment and stuff. It's been amazing, but I am at that point in that kind of that, I think you call it like thought disorder, where I kind of feel like to me like just these kind of thought clusters, they're all contradictions and they are kind of just chaotic a little bit. And, but it's around penance, and it's around like self-blame. But I've been doing that a lot through my life, and it never produced any good results. It kind of almost like set me up just to be kind of like, an easy scapegoat. But I feel that is shifting and changing, and it's like it feels so great to finally, get in touch with, my true self that's always been there.
What an awesome piece of work.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, I've had
sir.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've done so much therapy before in the past, and all this meditation and yoga and qigong and neigong and all these different, and I know they've helped, and they got me to a certain level. And I did do the Course in Miracles, and that was very, very helpful. But I just feel like you're this modality, this system that I don't even know if it's a system, or I guess it is, you can call it, but it's just very effective. But even, I mean, my reactions are not, I mean, they're like 20% where they were like 80% before. And I'm just very thankful. But I just wanted to call and like kind of let you know I haven't really been in touch with you about the process that I'm in and things like that. And but yeah, if you have any advice on how to navigate through this kind of self-mastery, through self-blame punishment, I would love to hear it.
Well, of course, the forgiveness of guilt, applying forgiveness where guilt comes forward, where self-blame happens. There's a film. Let's see, what was the name of it? There's a young man from India, and he's got a ship, and he's coming across the ocean, and there's a lion on board with him. The story of Pi, right?
The tiger.
The life of Pi.
Yeah, that was good.
One of the scenes that came to mind as you're saying that. There's a scene where he's come to America and he's become Catholic, but he's been Hindu, and so he recognizes that being Hindu, instead of just having God to be guilty in front of, he has millions of gods, his Hindu gods to be guilty in front of. It was kind of an hilarious scene to hear that. And yeah, there's no place in the human experience for guilt unless there's some kind of a controller that purposely instills guilt in people in order to keep a chain around their necks.
Right.
It's the same with fear. You hear Yeshua, I think about 15 or 16 times in the New Testament, Yeshua says, fear not, fear not, fear not, fear not. And yet you hear preachers who tell you that fear is the beginning of wisdom. It's like, what? What's going on here? Right. And at that point that you're in front of falsity and at least false interpretation, if not false intention. I think many people who are doing that are doing it because it's simply what they've had brainwashed into them. But it's time for us as human beings to be finished with fear, hostility, guilt, rage, grief, condemnation, gossip, slander. Time to be finished with all of that. And of course, Yeshua gave the key tool to that, and that's, it has to be forgiven. The energy and the energy impact behind it has to be removed. And once it is, well, then it's just a piece of information in the mind. It's not something that, when it's triggered into activity, takes us over and runs us. So you're right on track. Just, keep doing all of the above. Have you gone through as yet the full 90 hours of the videos for the intensive?
I just got past, almost. I got past the first still point breathing, and then on the next video. But I've been like re-listening to them a couple times here and there. But I'm going. I'm almost done. But before in the past, my pattern was to just muscle through it and just do it. This time, there's so much that is coming up that I'm allowing and giving the space and holding love and being patient with myself, because
nice.
At times I do get impatient, and I kind of know that the results from that are not the best. But I mean, there's a lot coming up, and it's coming up like smoothly. It's not like disruptive. It's
Right.
it's very, very nice to have that open up like that. Because when I was living in Seattle before, I did like probably 5 years of EMDR, and I just remember doing this EMDR and all of this disruption and things coming up in processing, and this is to me just way more harmonious and balanced and very effective. And
Yeah.
I mean, I went through a lot coming back to here in Indiana, and
Right.
I mean,
Well,
it was all
to
good.
me, that tool
all
of forgiveness is where it all happens. That's really the whole crux and core of it.
For sure, and just I did the forgiveness worksheets a long time ago. Then I would kind of come back, but now there's a lot to it, a lot that is being revealed and to mature in and to open up to. I mean, my girlfriend is doing them, and she's very scientific and like very literal, and we kind of walk through them together, and it's amazing just watching things clicking in her, and because she's very afraid of looking at what's in the unconscious. And I'm kind of
Right.
like the opposite. I'll like storm the gates and take the hinges off and
You're going for it.
and yeah. And so I kind of slowed down doing that, and I find it's more effective than trying to muscle my way and storm the gates and feel like I need to run the other way because I'm so overwhelmed. But
Right. Well, you'll notice that, each time you redo an hour, and you could literally do every one of those 90 hours 10 times over, and each time they'll take on a new meaning as you build a new set of brain cells, and the mind is able to construct a more complete picture of what's being said. But it can be said 1,000 times, but until somebody's got the brain cells, the mind can't replicate it, can't make sense of it, and each time you build a new set of brain cells, like, oh, that's what that means. I actually had that experience just the last night. There's a workshop that I did about 35 years ago. Best I can tell, it was about 35 years ago, and it was recorded, and it's a video called "The Introduction to Advanced Understanding of A Course in Miracles." And the Global Book Club, Hear My Voice Global Book Club out of London, England, I don't know if you know, but we've been doing the Why Is This Happening to Me Again book with them for over a year now, and they were getting ready to start the course. And she hadn't, the woman who runs the book club hadn't done, so she asked if I'd, do an introduction, and decided to do that correlation of material that's presented in that Introduction to Advanced Understanding. So the night before last, Jeannie and I watched it. It's the first time I've watched it in 35 years. And I sat there and I was blown away. It's like, oh my God, I understood that back 35 years. Wow, oh my God, that's awesome. How does that ever come together nicely? I didn't know I did that. So, and actually, anybody who happens to be listening at 3:30 today, we're going to be doing that book club. It's 8:30 in London, England, where the book club exists, but we're going to be doing it, and Jeannie, I'm sure we'll put a link in the notes if anybody wants to join us. What we've decided to do, because I was going to just originate that lesson again, but then after watching the video, I went back to the woman who runs the book club and said, I don't know if I could do that video again as well as I did it back then. So why don't we just watch the video and then do a Q&A? So we're actually going to watch that Introduction to Advanced Understanding of A Course in Miracles at 3:30 Eastern Time on a Zoom call. And if anybody wants to join us, go to the notes, and Jeannie will have a link there. Just click on it and join us at 3:30 Eastern Time. And we'll probably have maybe even a 2.5 hour session, depending how the Q&A goes. So if anybody wants to join us, but yeah, that key is so, you go back to Yeshua 2,000 years ago, and we've all heard the quote that said, this is only for those who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. And you go, well, what the heck does that mean? Well, recognize you got to have the brain cells, and if you don't have them, your mind can't structure a reality about anything it doesn't have brain cells for. And so each time you build a new layer, a new level, the mind can come up with a whole new depth and complexity of understanding that just, advances us forward. So glad to hear that's impacting your world.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Do you have any advice for anybody that's listening from the experience? All the therapy you've done, the EMDR, all of those things, and then coming to this with, a whole different healing process that you're doing. Do you have any input for anybody?
Yeah, I would have to say, I mean, I have been through a lot of trauma, and when I did talk to the therapist, they're like, "Oh my God, how did you live?" And they wanted to write books, and a lot of times during the therapy, they'll turn the therapy and start treating me as a therapist and stuff like that. But I wasn't like getting anywhere because a lot of it was to blame your parents and blame this and blame that and become stronger and better than them and all of that type of stuff. It wasn't really, I wasn't getting like really anywhere. And I just had somebody on my side, encouraging me to do that, and I, in a way, I was like, I have to drop this eventually. I have to like really just say, okay, this is in my thoughts and it's not happening anymore and all of this. But when coming to this work, I mean, it's like super like effective, like unusual. Like my girlfriend's like really amazed. Like she's like, oh my gosh, because I went through this. I renovated my house. The contractor that I had was, I had to like put him in jail and sue him and do all this stuff. And then I was going through a divorce and I had like, my grandma died and changed her careers. I just had so much, but it was like the perfect key to unlock the very deep stuff. And then I happened again on your work, and it just really cleared it up. Like I'm just amazed. It's like a miracle. But if someone does have a lot of trauma and it's like, they have disturbing thoughts and emotions and they just can't rest or sleep and they can't heal and everything's doom and gloom, I believe doing the codependence to interdependence is so effective that I don't have the words to describe it. I thought going through Jungian analysis would do it and all these different things, but it was just so fast and quick. But it was like really processing it. It wasn't like shoving it down or denying it. It was, I keep telling people about this, and they, and like what you said, they, some people might not have the brain cells to really understand, and it's very foreign. So I will just kind of just say, hey, check out this YouTube video and this introduction. And I just tell them, just listen to it over and over and over again. And just do the worksheets and just pause here and there. But don't think you have to figure it out, because that'll drive you nuts. And
yes, that is.
Yeah.
The number one solution to the non-B mind, if I could just figure this out.
Yeah.
You can't figure it out, but you can forgive it.
Yes. And it's just amazing when you do, or when touching on like realizing, who does have the power and who's holding the power. And it is my choice or decision in my mind to make these shifts and to say that, I'm generating my own perception and my own story. And there is not giving up power. And there, and I did struggle for a while, the fine line of like, is there boundaries, or how do I not become a doormat and all of this type of stuff. I mean, you could still say no to people that are harmful or being abusive.
Sure.
But you don't have to engage into an endless relationship and all these types of things, or leave in resentment. or hostility. But yeah, I'm just amazed. I think that this is. I'm so glad that you came upon the Kaboris and you took that responsibility.
So am I.
Yeah.
Over the last 40 plus years that I've been teaching the Aramaic forgiveness process, that worksheet, basically, it always just boggles my mind when people take that step of canceling the goal that's driving this whole perception and what they get to drop into and touch into that's underneath the surface.
Yeah.
And that's really the key to the whole thing is, can I take this little sucker out of hiding and bring it out in the full light of present love? And if I do, bingo, it disappears, it dissolves. And, it's just, there's nothing else I know of that you can do that with. It's just, and I love what the Course in Miracles says about forgiveness, says it's the only single-edged sword.
Yeah.
Everything else can be turned against us, or we can turn against ourselves, but forgiveness simply cleans up the mess. So glad it's working for you. Glad you're doing it. Glad you're committed and moving through it. That's awesome, sir. Fabulous.
Yeah, thank you very much. And you have a good day, and what I'll do is I'll keep in contact here and there and just update you and,
awesome.
And do the same. Keep going on.
We're on it. Every mind, heart, and being on the planet. All right, sir. Hey, thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. Blessings.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, so Miss Jeannie, we've got about 10 minutes or so left. Do we have anybody else out there in the phone queue with a hand up, or?
We do. So it's area code 480. I think it's Cecilia. Welcome.
Hi, Jeannie. Hi, Michael.
Hey, welcome,
how are you
young
doing,
lady.
Jeannie? Hey, Jeannie, how are you doing?
I am much better, thank you. I still have a little bit of hoarseness and just a tiny bit of sore throat, but I am definitely on the other side. Thanks.
That is so cool. Okay, well, you guys are great partners, and because of both of you, I've opened up my heart to allow somebody in and to be, as the commitment says, to stand in the space of love for somebody else, and to open up my space to be love for somebody, space of love. Hey, so I'm doing worksheets, and I'm doing mind shifters, and I'm doing on a multiple level of different things, and I'm doing the intensive, and I love it, and my house still isn't sold, and I just got off the phone with my realtor, and I said, what's going on? It's down to $499 now, and she said, yeah, all the realtors that are in my organization say it should have sold, and there's houses down the street that are 10 houses down the street from mine that just got on the market for $775,000, okay? And the only difference is they have a casita in the backyard, or they have a pool in the backyard, or something, And so I want to know what I need to do about doing more worksheets or something to keep me breathing and keep me seeing the truth, okay?
Well, in regard to, how would you do a worksheet? This is the question I'm hearing. How about I do a worksheet around the house? And so obviously you're looking at, that's the situation that brings up concern, or I don't know exactly what it is. You didn't label it, but I'd sort of label it as concern. So how do I process through the concern would be I'd look at, well, what's the goal? I want
the goal is
maybe
to have
the
this
goal,
money, because I'm dwindling down to very, very little money left in what I spent.
Okay.
I didn't expect this to happen.
Right.
And I don't have a job, and and I don't get Social Security, and I really need money to live on.
So then I'd start doing worksheets where that's the goal. If it's the sale of a house, it's the object of attention, or maybe it's your bills that are the object of attention, or maybe another shade of it is, I want the realtor to perform, and that could relate back to a power person dynamic of.
I know she's doing amazing. I know this. I'm not even going to give it words. I'm not even going to give it words to give it life. I'm not going to do it. Okay.
Yeah. So that's where I'd start. That would be the next round of worksheets that I would do.
Yes, I've got a lot of property tax bills and stuff coming up. It's probably a hydra, or I don't know if it's okay. So I'll just do
another
that.
thing, another kind of intuitive hit that I get is what another tool that you might use that might help to, it'll kind of act like a mind shifter and help to open some spaces that might be helpful for you to look at, is imagine, or not imagine, sit down with pen and paper and write a letter to the person who bought the house.
Oh, I love it.
Thanking them for what that's going to do for you, and explaining to them how deeply the house is going to serve them, how much they're going to enjoy it, and what a great thing it is going to be for them and for you. And that will tend to, act kind of like a mind shifter to resonate. If there's some other place in you that's holding this up, that might, but by making that really deeply detailed, like, right down to
I can tell you I did something similar, a smaller letter that I'm standing as a space of love and support for them. Okay. I did that. Okay. And that,
right.
So
what did that bring up for you?
I loved it. I want to stand as a space of love and support for people.
Right. So, one of the things that you might detail in the letter is how that money's serving you, because now you can take care of these tax bills and do, and you're going to be able to do this and that. And again, treating it like a mind shifter, just paying attention to your mind as you write that, or even the slightest negative thought that surfaces, and then turn that into a worksheet. So that might be another tool, set of way to approach the forgiveness process and the healing around this whole issue.
Yeah. So you're saying do this as a mind shifter and then turn it into a letter.
Well, either way, I was thinking in terms, my initial thought was just to write a very detailed letter and just pay attention to your mind as you would with a mind shifter. And as you're writing it, watch what comes up and see what other hooks there are in your mind that might be blocking it.
Yes, I hear you. Okay, you guys, thank you. You're cool.
Honored and delighted. Holding the space.
Talk to you later.
All right, blessings. Take care. Bye-bye. So our call-in number, if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, is 563-999-3581. If you dial that number, you'll be listening to the show directly, and then if you push 1, we'll be having a conversation. So, Miss Jeannie, do we have anything happening in the chat room or anybody in the phone queue?
No, it's all quiet, and what it resonated for me, and I don't have time, we've only got 3 minutes to read it today, so perhaps I'll read it tomorrow after we do the reading out of Michael Singer. But it talking about how we can get immersed into the movie and everything and all of our senses. We can also use all of our senses to pull ourselves back out of that movie too, once we're like locked in and lost in a situation. And actually I have a chapter in my book around that, and so perhaps I'll share that tomorrow.
That would be cool. I would love for you to share a chapter in your book, sweetie. It'd be awesome.
Okay.
Fabulous.
The 2 minutes.
All right, well, we'll look forward to that tomorrow. And in the meantime, everybody, create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world, and blessings.